How is it when you get a commission? Is there a way of working yourself into that?
Great question. That can be very challenging. And in the beginning, I would just struggle with it and push myself to make, whatever it is. But now what I do is I feel out what people are asking, what they're requesting. Okay. Is it something that fits me? I found that if I take orders that don't really fit, the people will be calling, going, "When are you going to get this thing done?" A lot of times people are calling, asking that. It just takes a long time. It's not always that reason, but sometimes it is that reason where I go, I don't really want to do this. I don't feel it.
Yeah.
But if somebody calls and I feel it, then obviously, it's like all the chemicals are in motion or whatever it is. Mm-hmm. Moving along and just tink, 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 and then boom, a 20-pound chunk just falls off and hopefully doesn't hit your foot. And then those are fissures. That's very common in stoneworking. But
do you do a lot of stonework?
I don't anymore. I did back in 2001. I worked at Dixie Cut Stone in Bridgeport, Michigan. And it was one of the largest limestone and marble working factories in the country, as far as I know. They since have gone out of business, but I was carving everything from windowsills of all different, from limestone to sandstone, for churches and mansions and such, hundreds and maybe thousands of those. We did a lot, but then also I was one of two master carvers in the factory where the high-end carving would come to me, which wasn't, a lot of times you're doing rudimentary, work making windowsills, but then the fireplace will show up and I get to carve an ornate fireplace. Or I have a 22,000-pound header that's at the entrance of one of a nice condo or apartment rather in Manhattan. And when I was carving in Michigan, I had the blueprints on the wall of my projects, and it's saying the bottom, this one's going to Mississippi, this one's going to Oregon, this one's going to Manhattan. And I didn't write down where they were going. I had no idea I'd ever even live in New York. So I've been here, I don't know, maybe 17 years now, something like that. I've been in the city many times. Every time I'm looking around to see these pieces that I've carved, on these buildings. It's Huron Bay, Lake Huron. Huron Bay, yeah, I think so. Lake Huron.
Is that where you were like a kid when you started carving, right?
I was young. I'm not sure when I first picked up a pocket knife, 7 or 8, and I remember I knew where my dad hid his pocket knife so that I could sneak and get it and play with it. And I think it was my 8th birthday that I got a Swiss Army knife. And I started whittling 2x4s, anything I could carve. And I loved it.
Who did you see do that? Anybody?
My dad would whittle things. He was into bonsai trees, or in Long Island they call them bonsai trees.
It's amazing.
And he would carve little tables out of wood, like the ornate one, just miniatures to go under his trees. So I'd watch him do that. So they saw that I liked doing it. It was a good pastime and kept me out of trouble. And all they had to worry about was me cutting my fingers. And then so they started getting me little tools and expanded quickly. And I was helping. I was teaching classes when I was like 14, 15, here and there.
Oh, to other kids?
Teaching wood carving. No, to adults.
To adults?
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Yeah, well, I started carving little items, little figurines. This is my pocket knife. Made a little boat. I made a boat. One of the first things I put water in the laundry tub in the basement to make sure it floated right. And it didn't at first. It sank, so I had to thin it out more, and I got it to float.
Oh, cool.
And then I started carving. Well, then I went to little figurines. I get little patterns and carve like little hobo I have with his hands in his pockets, and he's whistling. It's on my mom's shelf. You know, she still has. And then I met a guy. A buddy of mine knew a guy in the next block who carved decoys, like duck hunting decoys.
Oh yeah.
Except he carved very ornate ones, like art pieces. And there's competitions all over the country and the world where people carve duck decoys. It's a big thing, believe it or not. And I was enthralled with the detail this guy did in these bird carvings. It looked like you had to touch them to make sure they weren't going to move, they weren't alive. Every feather, every hair and every feather, glass eyes like the glass eye you saw in the unicorn sculpture. And then these competitions, they have zoologists and biologists and stuff judging them. And in some of the different classes they have in these competitions, they actually have tanks, like hot tub-sized tanks, and your birds have to float like a real bird. And I won a best in the world carving when I was, I believe, 16. And I carved a full-body duck that had his feet and everything, all out of wood. Every little checker on all the skin on its feet, every little head, hair of the feathers and such. And I was enthralled with that. I got deep into it, and I started teaching that at a young age. I say everything I've done, and I've done a lot of different forms of art, you know, from metal, from wood sculpture to steel sculpture to stone carving to knife. I had 2 knife shops to oil painting, pastel, charcoal, and such. I would say that all of those, the vast amount was me learning, me searching out the answers, but then also those answers came from me going to the person I knew the answer. So it wasn't like I didn't go to a college where they had 50 classes set up for you to learn. It was like, how do I do this? Well, I bet you that guy knows how to do that part. So I learned that part, and I learned this part, and that part. And the next project, I go, how do you do that? And I go, oh, I remember the third part on that project goes in the second part of this project, and that person will help me with that on that other project. So that's just kind of how it goes. So it's kind of like I'm self-taught, but I'm self-taught by asking people, how do I do it if I don't know? Or by combining different trades, different skill sets, different trades, and combining them in ways that maybe you would normally do. But overall, I can say from a lot of contemplation on the question of what is it? Are you self-taught? Is it teaching? And actually the bigger question that comes around that is it a gift? Or is it a learned thing? And after a lot of contemplation on that, I think the answer is, for me, in experience, it's a gift, and the gift is intense curiosity. That's the gift. Because with intense curiosity, you ignite something, and it seems like your answers are drawn to you, and it's exciting, and it's self-propagating. You keep going, and it grows. So it's the interest. Now, so I've watched myself lose interest, and all of a sudden things, just goes bang, and I'm on to something else. But that's it. And if you look at, at kids that get really interested in something, and it's intense, even if it's something, that's nonsense. Sometimes we don't lose that. And I think that's the gift, the power behind it. Of course, then I'd say, and having maybe a little bit of natural ability helps a lot too. But I think you can have a lot of natural ability, but have no curiosity. In other words, the curiosity is like the bridge into the passion. So you're not touching your passion. Then you kind of flounder. People go, wow, I wish I could do that. Why don't you pursue it? And you go, yeah, it's just,
Yeah.
So it has to be alive, and that's the curiosity.
It kind of drives everything.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Do you sign your pieces?
Yeah, I try to always sign them, but I forget. I've had people
do?
bring them back. I've had people bring them back, and they go, excuse me, what's up with this? You didn't sign it. And they're like, oh, that's
We're
all
like
I
on
meant
the
to.
bottom, or is there a spot? Like
Yeah, usually.
vertically?
I don't know if I have any. Is this one signed? Yeah, it's right there. You see through the spider webs. It says Arnett.
Oh, cool signature.
That's my basic signature with the chainsaw.
Very nice.
Joy Mangano, but as long as I ask ahead of time, she's, it's private. It's a gated house. It's all private.
Yeah.
Um, the giraffe I'm carving up front that one's 17 and a half feet tall. It's replacing the one I carved, the one that was on the cover of Newsday in '06, I think. I'm sitting on the back of this giraffe. That one's 14 and a half feet tall. And that's a giraffe she named, her and her family named Fred. All the animals on her estate are called Fred. Even their squirrels are all Fred. So this bigger, she wanted, that one, the tree was rotting, had been hit by lightning. They topped it off at 14 and a half feet. It had a lot of rot in the base of the tree before I even started. So I carved that 15 years ago maybe, and over the years I've done a lot of rehab work on it because the rot continued. So finally got to the point where I had to replace it. So she wanted one larger. So this one is called Fred Jr., and it's 17 and a half feet.
Even though he's Junior is bigger than
right,
Senior?
Yeah, he's bigger. But she's let me bring people to the estate, and I've had Newsday back there again, and different people.
That's cool.
And but so she's open. Now Charles Wang, he was much more private, and I carved on his estate. I did several things, but one of them, as far as the log carving goes, I did, as far as we know, the tallest tree sculpture on the East Coast. I haven't seen any larger and such, but or even close. It's I think it's 46 feet tall, and it's called what do we call it? The Chinese princess, but it's a dragon. It's a dragon that goes up in a spiral all the way up to the top, and the top of the sculpture is the dragon's head with its mouth open. Its eyes are this big, its teeth are that big, and it has horns coming out the back that were from another piece of the tree that are 9.5 feet long that stick out of the back. And I wish I could show you photos of it.
Yeah, that sounds.
Anyway,
most of your stuff looks very human, though. Not. Is that was that a stretch for you, that dragon?
No, this is a lot easier. Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah, if you carve, for example, if you carve a deer, and it's close to being, it's a close, rendition. Close though, not perfect. You can have even a biologist or zoologist sort of look at it and go, "Wow, that's spot on. Looks great." Okay. If you carve a human being and it's slightly off, you can have a 3-year-old look at it and go, and they'll go, "That looks weird." You see the difference?
Yeah.
And how we know ourselves better. So if you go to an imaginary thing, a dragon, the scope of what you can do and be accepted is vast. If the eye's this big, they go, okay, and the eyelid is this big around, or the eyeball's that big and the eyelid's that big, nobody's going to go, it's just a new design. They'll either like your dragon or they won't. They can't say it's wrong. They won't go, that's wrong, But, so Charles Wang, so he has this sculpture, and he likes it. He's proud of it, or he was. And he mentioned to me that it's a shame that it's way deep inside his estate when his driveway is right across from the Teddy Roosevelt Mansion Museum, where people are going in and out every day. And he said, wouldn't it be great if we could move it from inside his estate and put it right at the entrance to his driveway and secure it somehow so everybody could see it. And that was good. He was talking about doing that eventually, which probably would have happened by now. The challenge is a sculpture that's 50 feet tall, basically. That weight, the weight on that, it's so tall and thin. The base is narrow, so it's it can fall. And all the storms are up on there on Sagamore Hill, the wind storms. It's a risky. So we were trying to figure out how to engineer something that would hold it, that's affordable. To hold this, move the sculpture and hold it upright. I've done it with other sculptures that are, I think the tallest one was about 12 feet and weighed maybe 3,000 or 4,000 pounds. But that's nothing compared to this one we're talking about.
So it's carved. Is that one from a tree that was there, or that one's in a separate?
Yeah, this is a big oak tree.
Wow! So you would actually have to kind of
you have
dig
to cut
it out
off
or cut
and
the
have
base.
we have to have a big crane. We had it all set up for moving big objects. Because right where he wanted to put that at the end of his driveway, right across the street there like I said, the Roosevelt Mansion Museum.
Uh-huh.
And there was one or two trees that Teddy Roosevelt planted himself, apparently, that grew, which a few years ago was, I don't remember the exact measurement. Basically, it was about, let's say, 5 feet in diameter at the base. Huge tree. And 100 plus feet tall, or something around there. Well, it died, and ironically, it's the same type of tree, and it's the same age as the Lake Princess here on the lake that I'm carving for the town. And also, which is a historic tree that was planted to commemorate the Pilgrims landing. A rich family in the area went to England and got these 25-year-old trees that were... When the tree died, they were concerned, both the state they were running the museum and Charles Wang, that the limbs were going to fall. There's a walking trail there. They were going to fall and hurt somebody. They didn't have the funding, the state, to take the tree down properly. And it's historic, nationally historic, the wood itself. So he decided to have the crew there and myself go take the tree down very meticulously. Every branch, every piece of bark, every piece of the tree itself. And I was on this huge crane lift up with a laser pointer, and the guys were hanging in the tree cutting it. And I point at the tree limb and I go, like, what can you make with this, Todd? And I go, well, maybe I can make that into an eagle somehow, that's looking at the shape. So I would cut it there, and we dismantled the entire tree that way. Well, the pieces at the base, one was, if I remember correctly, 17,000 pounds. The biggest piece, that Charles was going to have me carve into Teddy Roosevelt standing with his walking stick. It'd probably be, I think that one was like 18 feet maybe tall, and then have his dog next to him. In the kitchen is a sketch that I did one night, because I had a meeting the next morning to show Charles, and he okayed it. So you can see that in the kitchen. I was going to carve. But what happened is, when he passed, that project, along with several others that we were talking about, that we were working on, just ended. And the point is, we had a crane, and we took these huge logs and needed to get a crane over there to pull them onto his estate. And he got a big shipping container, it was metal containers, and put all the small pieces in there, and then had it so it controlled the humidity, so the wood would age properly. Wow! And I was going to do sculptures out of it.
And now nothing's happening.
I think they cut them up and made tabletops or something. I don't know what they're doing with it, but I was carving for the Winterfest at Martha Clara Vineyard, and we had this. I wanted to do a piece in front of everybody, in front of the big glass windows. People could just watch this piece being created. What should I carve? Well, the porpoises were beaching themselves, and they were doing research at the aquarium in Riverhead. And I don't know if you know it or not, but the back part of that, they would fund, and they paid for, I don't know if the aquarium, I don't know if it was Jimmy Bissett, the owner, and there's another guy, I don't know his name, I don't remember his name. The other, I don't know what the situation is now. I know Jimmy Bissett passed several years ago. Right. But anyway, they did turtle rescue as a rescue operation in the aquarium. So they were working, and they need funds and such. So the managing lady at the vineyard had the idea, Todd, why don't you carve something that we could then auction off and take a chunk of the proceeds and give it to the research place at the aquarium. So that was the idea, so that's what we did. And then we had a fundraiser to sell it, and Jimmy Bissett was there with his wife, and he bought it. So so he bought it. I mean, his own money went to his own foundation. He came over with this huge payloader. The wheels were like 7 feet tall. And we picked up this sculpture and drove it from Sound Avenue, in Riverhead, all the way over to the aquarium in Riverhead, through town. With this, we had a parade behind us. So we were going 2 miles an hour, sing bouncing over the dolphins under the street lights.
So those dolphins are there, aren't they? They're there at the aquarium.
So he placed them right in front of the entrance, and they were there for a few months. And then he moved it. They started building the hotel behind. He made a permanent concrete slab right at the water, and it was permanently put there. And it was there for, I don't know, a decade. It was there for 6 or 8 years, and then the big hurricane came through, and that's it. It lasted. Somebody saw it going down the river. I found one of the fins off one of the porpoises, and it's gone.
You seem to have a philosophy, right? You definitely seem to have a philosophy, and I'm not going to say it's like one thing.
I can point at it.
Okay.
It's definitely, for me, it's very obvious, and it's the operative thing happening. It's spiritual. My whole life has been, and I know I'm realizing it now that I'm getting older, looking back, and then having the experiences I'm having now, or rather saying my experience of life now. Um, I look back to as a child, the things, just a natural what I would gravitate towards and what I would do and stuff. And I was very contemplative. I would spend, at times I go into at the end of our block was a field, and I had my BMX bike. I did all, jumping ramps and getting in fights and did all that stuff.
Okay.
Catching snakes, did all those things. But then also, my friends would be off doing that, and I would take a pack of sandwich. I'd go sit in the middle of this field, inside of a bush by the trail, and just be sitting there. Didn't think about what I was doing. I was just drawn to do that. And I would just sit there, and this immense peace would happen, and I remember just like watching the leaves move, and the kids would go by talking on their bikes 3 feet away from me. Wouldn't even know I was there, and I'd sit there sometimes all day. And then I got into hunting for a while, and I found that the part that I loved, the draw to it, was just the sitting in silence in the woods. And I did shoot a couple of deer. I don't hunt anymore. It's just not in me anymore. But I'm still drawn to. I love to go with other deer hunters, just sit in the woods. I've done that. Well, you go ahead and hunt. I'm just going to relax. That energy has been part of me, and seems to go through everything, and it seems to be where the creative energy comes from. And I've had a lot of experiences. I've had a couple like near-death experiences. I've gone through the ice in a car in the middle of the night and survived that. But then I've also had near-death experiences that involve deep meditation, or what I call these. I don't know how to put it. The words don't really work. Awakening experiences, and that have shifted my experience of reality. In other words, how I experience whatever's happening has changed, and continues to change. And I've noticed that in this change, one of the things that's happened, especially in the last 6 months, is that I'm able to see more of what I see inside my head, as far as images and such. And I used to just see all these things, and I just never didn't pay attention. Now I'm paying attention, and it's like enthralling just to look. I close my eyes and what comes up, and I'm looking at these things and going, I didn't design this. It's way too intricate than I could come up with. But I see things like that, and I think that is part of the mechanisms that allow that I can do this. But again, that doesn't subjugate what I said about the intense interest. But then that with these other things,
the curiosity.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So, but really back to what you said, it always goes back to this. Just for lack of the right words, there really aren't the right words. It's a spiritual movement, and the more I let go, the more it happens on its own, and the more it's just peace and bliss. There were a number of years, starting 12 years ago now, where I had this. I was meditating maybe. I was contemplating all hours of the day and night, and then meditating actively at least at least a few hours a day, and then also doing intense breathing, different exercises and such at the same time, and then studying. I read a couple hundred books within within a few years, studying what had seemed to start to happen. What's happening with me right now? I'm sensing things differently. Things that it's just something was different. And I had an idea what it was. I started searching, and then started these things, contemplation, meditation, and that just just expanded to one day this thing happened that I would say was an enlightening experience, put it that way. Very. And like crushing almost, not almost, it was crushing. And change, I've struggled to put it into words many, many times. And it's not possible, but I can point towards it with words. But it's, what happened, the essence, the bottom line is that my experience of reality changed. This intensity of peace and bliss came in that was not in my volition. I say that one of the things I've said, and I have many things to say to point at it, is I immediately was in the moving understanding as the experience of the peace that surpasses all understanding. And I knew the real meaning of it, not just, before that point, I would say I know the meaning of that. The peace that surpasses all understanding. That's pretty simple to understand. Well, it isn't, the truth of that statement is not the understanding of it. It's the standing as it. When it is the vibrating factor as you understand the meaning of the word in particular in the sentence, the peace that surpasses all understanding. And it points to the simple fact that when you drop the process of thinking you'll ever understand, a much greater power is already there. And that is the ground of the peace that surpasses all understanding. In a little while, oh my God, I'm not going to get this done, that's not going to happen, so you're gone. You're not here. And when you're here, as the experience, it's not that those things don't happen. They happen exactly the same, as much as they will or won't happen. It's that it's a total different happening. It's inside your field of peace. Even when it's agitation, it can happen, but it's from right back to peace, and the peace is through the middle of it. It's like you're in the zone, even when you look like you're not. That's not always the case, but a lot of times it is, and that's interesting to watch that. And then you know when people are not in their zone and they're not with it either, then they're really, you can feel it.
So you feel like you spend a lot of time in your zone?
Yeah.
Most of your time?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Most. This year has been the most challenging mentally and emotionally that I've ever had. So it's been changed through fire, having to really, really, really look at the truth of what is this, and what am I, and where is this, it isn't going anywhere either. That's another thing. There's so many things you start to that you learn on your own, and like things like this year's experiences, you're forced to see what's the real truth, because you can feel the depth involved of your decision. You really you're deep, deep, deep in the woods. These sort of things are what you really end up looking at. What is this really?